welcome to an NCA Tutor 5-minute tip. Today we're tackling family law and the very important distinction between federal law and provincial law and how to identify which to use on the NCA exams. This is a really key thing to understand because if you use the wrong jurisdiction on the exam, you will lose points immediately. It shows the examiners that you don't fully understand the law and you don't fully understand the constitutional implications between when the federal and provincial lines are separated. If we think of a marriage as a timeline, it might help us visualize when the respective laws kick in. Everything from formation of marriage to and including the separation of a couple fall into the province's jurisdiction. Everything involved in a divorce, the formal dissolution of a marriage, falls into the federal jurisdiction. Marriage is a provincial matter. The formation of a marriage is a provincial matter. The separation of a couple, not the formal divorce, but just them going their separate ways, is a provincial matter. If a couple wants to formally end a marriage, make it legally over, that becomes a federal issue. And where this becomes really confusing is when you're dealing with support orders, spousal support orders, child support orders, or custody orders, which are now in the new, at least in Ontario and the Divorce Act, are now better known as parenting orders. Who's taking the children, how much time does each parent get with the children, who's responsible for dropping them off at school, etc. All of those types of orders happen both in the federal realm and in the provincial realm. If a couple decides to separate, they're not formally ending their marriage, they're simply going their separate ways for the time being. They could be doing that indefinitely. They're not interested in going through a formal divorce. Some arrangements may need to be made in that interim time frame. Who's taking the children to school? Where are the children? Whose home are the children living in? If I'm a stay-at-home mom, who's paying for my living arrangements? All of those things need to be dealt with, even if you're just separating and not formally divorcing. And when those sort of issues are being dealt with under the umbrella of a separation, it happens in the provincial law. When that couple comes to formally apply for a divorce, if they ever do, those issues will get revisited. The support orders will get revisited, the parenting orders will get revisited under the federal law, because now those issues are being dealt with under the umbrella of a divorce. The only exception to this rule in the divorce side is equalization of property. How a couple is going to split up their property, how they're going to split the home or excess property, excess homes, cottages, investment properties, their personal property, things in the house, their wealth, etc. Anything that has to come under the umbrella of property will always be punted back to the provincial legislation. And the reason for that is if you cast your mind back to constitutional law, if you have done it already, or even if you haven't, this is kind of a preview into constitutional law, matters of property fall under the provincial umbrella. That is a provincial matter. It falls into the province's jurisdiction. Now, in all reality, the way that the court will assess how much spousal support you get or how much child support you get or where the child's spending their time is very similar between the federal and the provincial realms, at least between Ontario and the federal law. So once you've learned one, you can kind of apply those principles to interchangeably. You're not really going to be learning two completely different sort of formulas or methodologies for this. But when you're writing out your question, your answer to your question, you want to make sure that you're referencing the right legislation. You don't want to be dealing in a divorce and saying that the Ontario Family Law Act says that spousal support will happen this way because these are the factors at play. You want to make sure that you're referencing the Divorce Act. So I hope you found that helpful. As I say, NCA Tutor in the Ontario Family Law subject for the NCA exams. We offer one-to-one tutoring with myself and another practicing family lawyer. And we offer notes as well. I wrote the notes for the subject. These are the notes that I used on my exam. They've obviously been updated since I wrote the exam in 2018. Some things have changed around the family law, so they have been updated for that. And if you're interested in seeing a preview of those notes, we have a video on our YouTube channel where I go through those notes, not every single page, but I go through and I show you how they're laid out. They're color-coded. They're very easy to follow along with. We've received a lot of really great feedback from the many students who have used them over the past 3 or 4 years. And so I encourage you to check that out if you're looking for resources to help you through this exam. And stay tuned here as we come up with more 5-minute tips to help you navigate your NCA exams.